So here are the ahas or the notes that you were supposed to have with this next section. So Jonah fell prey to the classic problem that everybody does, and we had this on some of the last questions as well, and I'll display the answers for you in a second. But there was a question on the last test. Guarantee there's going to be one on the final. And where we're headed with all of this is you need to be able to do this factoring and distributing fairly quickly and very accurately. And don't fall into the trap that Jonah fell into. So, what I want you to add next to question 313 here is, well, let me pause for a second here. Let me put the answer up first, and then I'll show you what I want you to add for notes. So the actual answer for question 313 was supposed to be right here in that color. What Jonah said only works when x and y are both 0. So here are the notes that I wanted you to put with that, just to make sure you have it, because we had a name for this, and I'm not usually really big on you knowing the names of these things, but you need to know what this thing is called, and that is called the binomial square. And just to reiterate how this works, you take the first number and square it, so x squared. You take the first times the second and double it. So you take this x times this y and double it to get 2xy. And you take the second term squared. So next to question 313, make sure you label that as the binomial square. By question number 14, that when you write it with the parentheses like that, that's called the product, or the product of the outside dimensions. And when you write it in one long, we actually call that a trinomial, because it's 3 terms, that is called the sum. It's very important that you know that, the difference between the product and the sum, when we get to doing some canceling later on here. And so you're going to be asked to factor several expressions, and to factor it means to write it as a product. Write it with 2 separate parentheses. And here are the answers to 14, B, and C. I thought I'd review box and diamond product here. Notice I left them in red, that you take the first number and put it in one corner. In the opposite corner, you put the third term, so that's where the 2x squared and the 2 go, and the 5x goes in the bottom of the diamond. Remember when we did these questions, there was a big diamond around that, but most of us teachers don't do a very good job of drawing our diamonds, so we don't draw the diamond part around all of that because it takes up too much space, and look how ugly that is. So what you had to do was find the product of these first 2 numbers. So the product of 2x squared and 2 is 4x squared. And the sum is going to be 5x. We're looking for numbers that multiply to 4x squared and add to 5x. Mr. Job probably had you list out the factors of 4x squared. That'd be 1x and 4x, or 2x and 2x. And then it's a little guess and check to see which ones actually add to 5x. Once you figure out the ones that add to 5x, you just copy those 2 green ones over into the remaining 2 spaces on your box. And then you find the greatest common factor. So that's why I have this arrow drawn right here. We're finding the greatest common factor of, I guess that obscured things kind of badly. I got confused whether I was recording or pausing, so I may repeat some things here. We're trying to find the greatest common factor of this row, and the greatest common factor between 1x and 2 is 1. And that kind of gets the ball rolling once you've done that greatest common factor. So if the left side is a 1 and the area is 1x, that means the bottom's an x. If the bottom's an x and the area is 2x squared, then the left side is 2x. And so forth and so on. If the left side is 1, the area is 2, the bottom's a 2. If the left side is 2x, the bottom's a 2, this has to be a 4x. So that gives us this for an answer. So this is the product or the factored answer for that question. And here are the rest of the answers for number 15. Take a few seconds and correct that. I think we talked about number 16. You had a couple of options with that. You could use the associative property. That's kind of smudgy. Okay, you could use the associative property to associate the right two parentheses and distribute the p to both the 2p and the 1, and distribute the 3 to the 2p and the negative 1, and combine like terms. And once you have everything taken care of in this parenthesis, now you can distribute that p to the rest of the quantity. That was one option. You certainly could have associated these differently. Let me get those out of the way. You could have multiplied those two first if you wanted to. But all in all, when you get to the end, you should wind up with 2p cubed plus 5p squared minus 3p. Likewise, in letter B, you're going to distribute first, and then here you have to distribute first, and then combine like terms. So here are the answers for number 16. I know we did a bunch of factoring at the beginning of the year, and it's just one of those things that we need to review periodically. And I know where this is headed at the end of the chapter, that you need to be able to factor quickly and efficiently in order for you to really kind of move on in this chapter, and really to move on in most of mathematics. So this is a building block. We took a few seconds here to review writing as a product, which we called factoring, and writing as a sum.